I never thought a simple laptop repair would be the thing that destroyed my marriage. But there I was, staring at an email that shouldn't have existed, my hands trembling as I gripped the edge of my desk. My name is Avery, and until 10 minutes ago, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. I'd been happily married to Ethan for 3 years, working my way up at the local TV station and finally feeling settled. The kind of settled where you start thinking about paint colors for a nursery. The laptop had been acting up for weeks. Ethan kept complaining about it running slow, but he was always too busy to deal with it. So, being the helpful wife I am, I decided to back up his files and run a system restore. That's when I saw it, an email draft that never should have been there. I can't wait to start our life together. You're everything I've been looking for. E. The timestamp was from yesterday. My stomach lurched as I scrolled through the draft folder, finding dozens more like it, all addressed to someone named Chloe. I heard keys jingling at the front door and quickly closed the laptop, my heart pounding against my ribs. Ethan walked in, looking annoyingly perfect in his business casual wear, that familiar half-smile on his face. "Hey, babe," he said, dropping his bag by the door. "Did you make dinner?" "No," I managed, trying to keep my voice steady. "I was working on your laptop." His expression shifted so slightly most people wouldn't have noticed. But I did. "Oh, did you fix it?" "Found some interesting stuff," I said, watching his face carefully. "Your draft folder was pretty full." He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Work emails, probably. You know how it is." "Right," I said, standing up. "Work emails." To Chloe. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. Ethan's face went through a series of micro-expressions: surprise, fear, calculation, and finally, something that looked like resolve. "Avery," he started, using that patronizing tone he sometimes used with clients, "I think you're misunderstanding." "Don't," I cut him off. "Just don't." I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, but he caught my arm. "Where are you going?" I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. "You know what's funny? I actually came across something else while backing up your files. Something about company software and private servers? I'm sure your IT department would love to hear about that." His hand dropped away like I'd burned him. I walked out the door, leaving him standing there. My mind was already racing with possibilities, but one thing was certain: this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I ended up at Margaret and Thomas's house without really planning to go there. My in-laws lived in one of those cozy suburban homes where the porch light's always on and something's usually baking in the oven. Tonight was no different. The smell of Margaret's famous apple pie hit me as soon as she opened the door. "Avery, what a lovely surprise," she said, pulling me into a hug. Then she held me at arm's length, her smile fading. "Sweetheart, you're shaking." I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Margaret just pulled me inside, calling out to Thomas. He appeared from his study, reading glasses perched on his nose, looking concerned. "I'll make some tea," Margaret said, disappearing into the kitchen. Thomas guided me to their living room couch, the same one where Ethan and I had announced our engagement 3 years ago. The memory made my stomach turn. "I found something," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper, "on Ethan's laptop." Thomas leaned forward, his expression carefully neutral. "What kind of something?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Another text from Ethan: "Come home. We need to talk about this. You're overreacting." Margaret returned with the tea, setting it down just as my phone buzzed again. This time it was Lila. "Where are you?" "Call me ASAP." "He's been calling the house," Margaret said quietly, sitting beside me. "Says he can't reach you." "Did he tell you why?" I asked, watching their faces. "Just that you had a misunderstanding," Thomas replied, his tone suggesting he didn't quite believe that. I pulled out my phone and showed them the email I'd photographed. Margaret's hand flew to her mouth, while Thomas's jaw tightened. "There's more," I said. "I found some files. I think he's been doing something illegal at work. Using company servers for private projects or something." "Oh, Ethan," Margaret whispered, disappointment heavy in her voice. Thomas stood up abruptly. "I'll talk to him." No, I said quickly. Please don't. Not yet. I need. I need time to figure out what to do. My phone buzzed again, Ethan. If you tell anyone about those files, you'll regret it. Let's just talk. Margaret must have seen something in my face because she took my hand. Stay here tonight, dear. The guest room's always ready. I nodded, feeling tears finally start to fall. As Margaret hugged me, I caught sight of Thomas in the hallway, staring at a family photo on the wall. It was from our wedding day, all of us smiling, none of us knowing what was coming. My phone buzzed one more time. It was Lila. Found something you need to see. It's about Chloe. And you're not going to believe who she really is. I met Lila at our usual coffee spot, my hands still shaking from the morning's confrontation with Ethan. She was already there, laptop open, her expression grim. You're not going to believe this, she said as I sat down. Chloe Bennett isn't just some random colleague. She's the daughter of James Bennett. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. James Bennett was the CEO of the tech company where Ethan worked. Suddenly, all those late-night meetings and weekend work emergencies made perfect sense. There's more, Lila continued, turning her laptop toward me. Look at the company's recent patent filings. I scanned the document, my heart racing. There it was, Ethan's name on a patent that looked suspiciously similar to the private project I'd found on his laptop. Except this one was dated 3 months earlier. He stole it, I whispered. He stole someone else's work. My phone buzzed, Ethan again. I answered this time, putting it on speaker. Where are you? His voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk about this like adults. Like adults. I laughed, the sound hollow. You mean like how you've been adulting with the CEO's daughter? Silence. Then, you don't understand what's at stake here. I understand plenty. I saw the patent, Ethan. The real one, not your stolen version. Keep your voice down, he hissed. Listen, we can work this out. I can make this right. Just come home. That's when I felt it, a flutter in my stomach that made me freeze. My hand went instinctively to my abdomen, and suddenly the pregnancy test I'd taken last week felt like a ticking bomb. Avery? Lila mouthed, noticing my expression. I can't, I told Ethan. I can't keep pretending everything's fine when what? His voice changed, becoming softer, more dangerous. When you're sitting on evidence that could ruin everything I've worked for. Think carefully about your next move, Avery. You're not the only one who can dig up secrets. The line went dead. Lila reached across the table, squeezing my hand. What aren't you telling me? She asked quietly. I opened my mouth to respond when I saw them, Ethan and Chloe, walking into the coffee shop. They hadn't noticed us yet, but Ethan's hand was on the small of her back, intimate and familiar. The same way he used to touch me. Chloe was laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting on her own stomach in a gesture that mirrored mine just moments ago. Oh God, I whispered, the pieces falling into place. She's pregnant too. Margaret helped me pack while Lila waited in her car outside. My hands shook as I folded clothes into a suitcase, trying not to look at the wedding photos still hanging on the walls. You're doing the right thing, Margaret said softly, placing my prenatal vitamins in my toiletry bag. Both of you need to be somewhere safe right now. I paused, one hand on my stomach. You know? She smiled sadly. I suspected. A mother knows these things. She hesitated, then added, I also know about Chloe's condition. The room seemed to spin. How long? Thomas saw them together last month at the hospital. He thought. He hoped he was wrong. A car door slammed outside. Through the bedroom window, I saw Ethan's BMW pulling into the driveway. Margaret quickly zipped up my suitcase. Go, she said. Use the back door. I'll handle him. I could hear Ethan's voice downstairs, arguing with Thomas. Where is she? Her car's not here, but Lila's outside. Son, Thomas's voice was stern. We need to talk about what you've done. I slipped down the back stairs, my heart pounding. Through the kitchen window, I saw Chloe getting out of Ethan's car, her designer handbag clutched protectively over her stomach. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. We should talk. Woman to woman. See. Another buzz, this time from Ethan's company email address. Someone named Marcus had replied to an old thread, project files received. Legal team reviewing discrepancies in authorship. Meeting tomorrow 9 a.m. Lila honked softly from the driveway. I hurried toward her car, but Chloe's voice stopped me. Avery, wait. I turned. She stood there, perfect and polished, everything I wasn't. But there was something in her eyes, fear, maybe? Or guilt. He told me you were separated, she said. That you were the one who. Save it, I cut her off, my voice steadier than I felt. But you should know, those project files he gave you? They're stolen. And I have proof. Her face paled. What are you talking about? Ask your father about the original patent filing. The one from 3 months ago. From inside the house came the sound of breaking glass and raised voices. Margaret appeared at the back door, gesturing urgently. Go, both of you, she said. He's not thinking clearly. Chloe took a step back, her hand protectively over her stomach, a mirror of my own instinct. As Lila drove us away, I watched in the rearview mirror as Ethan burst out of the house, Thomas restraining him. He looked wild, desperate. Nothing like the man I'd married. Where to? Lila asked quietly. I opened my laptop, pulling up the IT certification course I'd bookmarked weeks ago. Forward. We're going forward. 3 weeks into my IT certification course, Margaret called with news that made my blood run cold. Ethan's trying to sell the house, she said. He's already accepted an offer. I was sitting in Lila's guest room, surrounded by study materials and prenatal vitamins. He can't do that. My name's on the deed. That's not all, Margaret's voice wavered. He's been telling people you're mentally unstable, that you're making up stories about him because of pregnancy hormones. My laptop pinged with a new email. It was from Marcus at Ethan's company. Meeting moved up. Evidence suggests systematic theft of intellectual property. Legal action pending. Another ping, Chloe, we need to talk. It's about the patents. And the money. The money. I logged into our joint account, my hands shaking. Empty. Every penny transferred out 2 days ago. My phone rang, Ethan. Against my better judgment, I answered. Finally, he said. Ready to be reasonable? Reasonable? I stood up, pacing. You stole our savings, you're selling our house. Our house? You abandoned it. Just like you abandoned our marriage. His voice turned silky. But I'm willing to be generous. Sign the divorce papers, agree to my terms, and this all goes away. And the patent theft? A pause. That's your trump card? Some technical misunderstanding that you, with your limited knowledge, think you've uncovered. I opened my laptop, pulling up the files I'd been analyzing in my IT course. The timestamps don't lie, Ethan. Neither does the original developer's signature, buried in the code you thought you'd erased. You're bluffing. Am I? Ask Chloe about the offshore account her father discovered. The one where you've been funneling company funds. Silence. Then, you have no idea what you're dealing with. Actually, I do. And so does the SEC. I sent them everything this morning. The line went dead. Seconds later, my phone exploded with texts from Chloe. What did you do? They're searching his office. Dad's furious. I sank onto the bed, my hand instinctively going to my growing bump. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about survival. Margaret called back. Avery? Thomas just talked to Ethan's lawyer. He's trying to claim paternity rights. For both babies. My vision blurred. Through the window, I saw a black SUV pull up outside Lila's house. 2 men in suits stepped out, heading for the front door. I have to go, I told Margaret. Tell Lila I'm sorry. I grabbed my pre-packed emergency bag, the one I'd hoped I'd never need, and headed for the back door. Sometimes survival means knowing when to run. The hospital waiting room felt too bright, too sterile. I sat between Margaret and Thomas, trying not to look at Ethan pacing by the entrance. Chloe had been rushed in an hour ago, complications with her pregnancy. The same complications I'd been warned about at my last checkup. Mrs. Walker? A nurse appeared. She's asking for you. I stood, but the nurse pointed at Margaret. Of course. I wasn't a Walker anymore, was I? My phone buzzed, another email from the SEC investigators. They needed more documentation, more proof. The case against Ethan was crumbling without access to the company's internal servers. Avery. Ethan's voice made me jump. He looked terrible, his designer suit wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. They're dropping the investigation. His voice was low, triumphant. Your evidence? Circumstantial. And Chloe's father. Well, let's just say he's very invested in keeping the company's reputation clean. My hands clenched. So you win? Just like that? It doesn't have to be a war. Sign the papers, drop everything, and I'll make sure you're taken care of. Both of you. His eyes dropped to my stomach. Before I could respond, Thomas appeared. Chloe lost the baby. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan's face crumpled, then hardened as he looked at me. This is your fault. The stress you caused. Don't. Margaret's voice cut through the tension. She'd appeared behind Thomas, her face wet with tears. Don't you dare blame her for your choices, Ethan. My phone buzzed again. Lila, they're seizing your accounts. All of them. Even the secret one we set up last week. The room started spinning. I grabbed the wall for support, feeling a sharp pain in my abdomen. Avery? Margaret reached for me as my knees buckled. Through the haze of pain, I heard Ethan talking to someone. Yes, Your Honor. She's unstable, as you can see. The emergency custody order. No, I gasped, but another wave of pain hit. The last thing I saw before the darkness closed in was Ethan's face, wearing that same expression he'd had when I first confronted him about the emails. Not triumph, not anger, but something worse, pity. I woke up in a hospital bed, monitors beeping steadily. Margaret sat beside me, holding my hand. The baby? I whispered. Stable, but you need to rest. She hesitated. Ethan's lawyer filed the papers. He's seeking full custody, citing mental instability and evidence that you hacked company servers. I closed my eyes, feeling the walls close in. Everything I'd fought for, everything I'd tried to protect, it was all slipping away. What do I do now? I asked the darkness. The monitors kept beeping, offering no answers. The courthouse steps were slick with rain when Chloe found me. 2 months had passed since she lost her baby, and the custody hearing was set to start in an hour. He lied to me too, she said, clutching a manila envelope. About everything. I kept walking. I have nothing to say to you, but I have something to show you. She thrust the envelope at me. The original server logs. The ones proving where the stolen code really came from. Inside, Margaret and Thomas were already seated. Ethan stood with his lawyers, looking confident in his expensive suit. He'd already convinced the judge that I was unstable, that my hacking made me unfit for custody. My phone buzzed. Lila, SEC investigators are here. Waiting for your signal. Chloe's voice shook. My father didn't just protect Ethan because of me. The company's been running a scheme for years. Stealing from smaller developers, burying them in legal fees if they complained. Why are you telling me this now? Because I lost everything too. Her eyes were hard. And because your daughter deserves better than what he did to us. The judge called the session to order. Ethan's lawyer started painting me as an unstable hacker, a vindictive wife who'd endangered company security. Then Chloe walked in. Ethan's face went white. She walked straight to the judge, handed over the envelope, and took the stand. Miss Bennett, Ethan's lawyer started, given your relationship with Mr. Walker. You mean how he manipulated me? Chloe's voice was steel. Or how he used my father's position to cover up his crimes? The courtroom erupted. Through the chaos, I caught Margaret's eye. She nodded slightly, then stood. Your Honor, she said clearly, I'd like to testify about the night my son asked me to lie about his whereabouts during the server breach. Ethan's carefully constructed world crumbled in 20 minutes. The SEC investigators entered as Chloe detailed the company's schemes. Thomas provided dates of suspicious meetings he'd witnessed. And Margaret. Margaret told the truth about her son. Avery, Ethan called as they let him out. You've ruined everything. I touched my stomach, feeling my daughter kick. No, Ethan, you did that yourself. Outside, rain still fell. Chloe paused beside me. I'm testifying against my father, too. Some things matter more than family loyalty. Some things are family loyalty, I corrected, watching Margaret and Thomas wait by their car. My phone buzzed one last time, an email from Marcus, position still open in cybersecurity. Someone with your skills at detecting fraud. Interested? I smiled, feeling the weight of the past months finally lift. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply living well. 1 year later, I stood in my new office at the cybersecurity firm, watching Ella sleep in her carrier. My daughter had Margaret's eyes, a bittersweet reminder of the woman who'd helped save us both. Margaret never got to meet her granddaughter. The stroke came suddenly, just weeks after the trial. But she'd left us more than just the inheritance, she'd left us a future. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. Thomas stood there, looking older but somehow lighter. "Ready for lunch?" he asked, already reaching for Ella. My daughter's face lit up at the sight of her grandfather, and I felt that familiar mix of joy and sadness. "He's asking to see her," Thomas said quietly as we walked to the cafe. "Ethan, he's up for parole next month." I watched Ella grasp Thomas's finger, trusting and innocent. "What do you think?" "I think." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I think Margaret would say everyone deserves a chance to make things right. But not everyone deserves a second chance to cause harm." At the cafe, Lila was waiting with Chloe. An unlikely friendship had formed between them during the aftermath of the trial. Chloe's testimony had helped put her father and several executives behind bars, and she'd rebuilt her life from scratch, something we all understood. "Got the final divorce papers," Lila announced, sliding an envelope across the table. "You just need to sign." As I reached for the pen, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry. For everything. E." I deleted it without responding. Some apologies come too late. "Speaking of papers," Chloe said, "the startup I'm working with needs a security consultant. Someone who knows how to spot corporate fraud before it happens." I smiled, thinking of the path that had led me here. "I might know someone." Later, at Margaret's grave, I told her about Ella's first words, about the promotion at work, about the small house I'd bought in her old neighborhood. I told her about Thomas teaching part-time at my IT security classes, finding purpose in helping others protect themselves. "I never got to thank you properly," I said, placing fresh flowers beside her stone. "For showing me that the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's world. It's about building your own, stronger than before." Ella stirred in her carrier, reaching toward the sunset with tiny fingers. In that moment, I saw our future stretching out before us, not perfect, but ours. Built on truth, protected by strength, and guided by the kind of love that outlasts betrayal. Sometimes the happy ending isn't about winning or losing. Sometimes it's about finding the courage to write your own story, even when others try to steal the pen.